quote, the inhabitants of London choosing voluntarily to live much by candlelight and sleep by sunshine, and yet they often complain, a little absurdly, of the duty on candles and the high price of tallow. The government, of course, had the price of tallow jacked up with taxes and stuff because they knew everybody used it, just like gasoline today. Big taxes on gas because everybody uses it. So back then, people voluntarily chose to sleep in the morning and stay up later at night, even though it meant using candles. Every damn day you would burn a couple of candles. Every day. Can you imagine keeping a supply of candles around? Some people still do it, just because they're hippies and stuff. Some may think these trifling matters not worth minding or relating, but when they consider that though dust blown into the eyes of a single person or into a single shop in a windy day is of small importance, yet the great number of the instances in a populous city and its frequent repetition give it a weight and consequence. Perhaps they will not censure very severely those who bestow some attention to affairs of this seemingly low nature. In other words, you've got to pay attention even to these little things. Human felicity is produced not so much by great pieces of good fortune that seldom happen, as by little advantages that occur every day. So, the good life is made up not of a fantastic event once in a while, a good wedding, your kid's born, you have a good birthday. That's not a good life. A good life is every single day being comfortable and happy, every day. So asserts Franklin. Now he had been appointed Postmaster General, and quote, in the first 4 years, and now he had been appointed Postmaster General, and he took the post with Mr. William Hunter. Quote, in the first 4 years, the office became about £900 in debt to us. In other words, they spent that much. They spent £900 more than they brought in. But it soon after began to repay us because they got the efficiencies up and running. And before I was displaced by a freak of the ministers, of which I shall speak hereafter, we had brought it to a yield 3 times as much clear revenue to the Crown as the Post Office of Ireland. If I ever said this back in Philadelphia, that was a misnomer. This is when he's still in England. He actually gets appointed to the office of Postmaster General. The business of the post office occasioned my taking a journey this year to New England, where the College of Cambridge, of their own motion, presented me with the degree of Master of Arts. Yale College in Connecticut had before made me a similar compliment. Thus, without studying in any college, there's another man who made a success of himself without going to college. Of course, it was centuries ago. I came to partake of their honors. They were conferred in consideration of my improvements and discoveries in the electrical branch of natural philosophy. End of chapter 9. Chapter 10, page 125. In 1754, Ben is elected to go meet the Indians. We saw the drunk powwow. He went to confer with the chiefs of the 6 nations concerning the means of defending both their country and ours because of the war with France going on. So we skip down a bit. We met the other commissioners at Albany about the middle of June. In our way thither, I projected and drew up a plan for the union of all the colonies under one government, so far as might be necessary for defense. I ventured to lay it before Congress. It then appeared that several of the commissioners had formed plans of the same kind. This type of thinking was in the air. Mine happened to be preferred, and with a few amendments was accordingly reported. Skipping down a bit. Many objections and difficulties were started, but at length they were all overcome and the plan was unanimously agreed to. The plan's fate was singular. The assemblies of the various provinces did not adopt it, as they all thought there was too much prerogative in it, and in England it was judged to have too much of the democratic. So the people here in America said, no good, you're too much ordering us around. People in England said, you're leaving way too much up to the people. And he says that his plan and his reasons in support of it are to be found among his political papers that he says were printed unless they were lost. giving down, I'm still of the opinion that it would have been happy for both sides if it had been adopted. The colonies so united would have been sufficiently strong to have defended themselves. There would then have been no need of troops from England, and of course the subsequent pretext for taxing America and the bloody contest it occasioned would have been avoided. But such mistakes are not new. History is full of the errors of states and princes. So now we have a little quote here. "Look around the habitable world. How few know their own good, or knowing it, pursue." I think that speaks to the conspiracy theorists who believe that there's somebody orchestrating this stuff at the top. Why would this crazy stuff be happening unless somebody's benefiting from it? Otherwise there'd be no reason for it to happen. This crazy stuff shouldn't be happening, but it is. Therefore someone must be orchestrating it. No. As a matter of fact, tragically, not too many people understand how to pursue their own self-interest. Tragically. Continuing with the quote, "The governor of Pennsylvania, in sending it down to the Assembly, expressed his approbation of the plan, quote, as appearing to him to be drawn up with great clearness and strength of judgment, and therefore recommended it as well worthy of their closest and most serious attention," end quote. But the House took it up when Franklin was absent, which he did not think was very fair, and just reprobated the bill without paying any attention to it at all, and it just mortified him. He was very angry. But that was that. Now he talks about a Mr. Morris. Quote, "In my journey to Boston this year, I met at New York with our new governor, Mr. Morris, just having arrived there from England, with whom I had been before intimately acquainted. He had some reason for loving dispute." Mr. Morris, very disputeful character, loved to fight and argue. "Being eloquent, an acute sophister, and therefore generally successful in argumentative conversation, he had been brought up to it from a boy, his father, as I have heard, accustoming his children to dispute with one another for his diversion while sitting at the dinner table." I don't know about that, but maybe. "But I think the practice was not wise, for in the course of my observations of those disputing, contradicting, and confuting people, are generally unfortunate in their affairs. They get victory sometimes, but they never get goodwill. Nobody likes them because they're just disputatious, which would be of more use to them to have goodwill. We parted, he going to Philadelphia, and I to Boston. The office of Justice of the Peace I tried a little by attending a few courts and sitting on the bench to hear causes. But finding that more knowledge of the common law than I possessed was necessary to act in that station with credit, I gradually withdrew from it, excusing myself by being obliged to attend to higher duties of a legislator in the Assembly. My election to this trust was repeated every year for 10 years, without my ever asking any elector for his vote, or signifying either directly or indirectly any desire of being chosen. Just carried to power on the shoulders of the people. On taking my seat in the House, my son was appointed their clerk. The year following, a treaty being to be held with the Indians at Carlisle, the governor sent a message to the House proposing that they should nominate some of their members to be joined with some members of the council as commissioners for that purpose. The House named the Speaker, Mr. Norris, and myself, and being commissioned, we went to Carlisle and met the Indians accordingly. So we went to meet the Indians about a treaty. Quote, "As those people are extremely apt to get drunk, and when so are very quarrelsome and disorderly." Now this is not me, so let's not get any political correctness crowd yelling at me for saying bad things about the Indians. This is first-hand account of Benjamin Franklin himself. He says, quote, "As those people are extremely apt to get drunk, and when so are very quarrelsome and disorderly, we strictly forbade the selling of any liquor to them. And when they complained of this restriction, we told them that if they would continue sober during the treaty, we would give them plenty of rum when the business was over. They promised this, and they kept their promise because they could get no rum." The treaty was conducted very orderly and concluded to mutual satisfaction. They then claimed and